Here's an experiment for you. Take passionate experts in human resource technology. Invite cross-industry experts from inside and outside HR. Mix in what's happening in people analytics today. Give them the technology to connect. Hit record. Pour their discussions into a beaker. Mix thoroughly. And voila, you get the HR Data Labs podcast, where we explore the impact of data and analytics to your business. We may get passionate and even irreverent, but count on each episode challenging and enhancing your understanding of the way people data can be used to solve real-world problems. Now, here's your host, David Turetsky.
Hello and welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast. I'm your host, David Turetsky. Like always, we try and find really fascinating people to talk to inside and outside the world of human resources to bring you the latest on what's happening in HR data, analytics, and technology. Today, we have with us Greg Miller, who's the SVP of Customer at Pearson Workforce Skills and the co-founder of Faethm. Hey, Greg, how you doing?
Good, David. Thanks. Good to be here.
Good to have you. And as always, we have our trusted co-host and friend and baritone, Dwight Brown. Hey, Dwight.
Hey, David. How you doing? Greg, good to have you here.
Thanks. It's not every day I get called fascinating, so I do appreciate it.
Well, you are. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Because then everybody will think you're as fascinating as I do.
So, yeah, I grew up in the U.S., but about 21 years ago, left California and came to Australia, where I have lived the last 21 years and have loved every minute of it. Been in the IT industry, I guess you could say, pretty much my whole career. Bunch of multinationals, but finally found my happy place and left that world to start up our own tech business about 5 years ago here in Sydney, but took it around the world and really, yeah. When I say I found my happy place, I truly mean it. It's been a great run.
Great.
So tell us, what is Faethm?
So Faethm's an AI platform, and I guess we hear that a lot these days. But yeah, maybe the realities of that is not all AI is AI. But our team, thank goodness, not me, but our team of data scientists have done the real work and created something unique, true deep learning and machine learning that goes on in this platform, which has been built to look into the future, understand, hey, in the next 3 years, 5 years, longer for governments, but understand what the impact of external forces are going to be on. That might be AI. What's that going to do to my job? That might be robotics, might be climate change, you name it. But it's been built to look in the future, understand that impact so that I can then, as a business leader or government leader, take action. That's what it's all about. So we can move to that stage of action and preparing people for that future.
Outstanding. So, Greg, like we ask most people, or actually all of our guests, what's one fun thing that no one knows about you?
Right on. Obviously, you let me know this was coming, and I had thought, should this be a work thing or a personal thing? But I've opted for a personal thing that truly no one knows. Many years ago, and I need to preface this by, in case my mother watches this, and I don't know if she really cares about what I do, but just in case my mother watches this, I apologize now, Linda. But this is where she would call me Gregory, not Greg, because I'd be in trouble. But Baba Murphy, who was my next door neighbor and who I had a bit of a crush on, she had a convertible bug. And one day a hole showed up in that convertible and no one knew who did it or why or how. And it was me. So, I mean, I was like 13.
Oh, okay. I was thinking maybe this was a couple of years ago. Okay, it's 13. Yeah.
No.
All right.
Yeah. I was like 13. She was 18.
Oh.
One of those things. So, but in a moment of anger, I threw a rock. The rock went through the convertible, and I never owned up to it until this particular moment in time, David.
Now, of course, she could be listening.
That seems highly unlikely. If my mom, even my mom, will be pretty unlikely.
Wow.
But,
Wow. Well,
So that's how you professed your love to her?
I was 13. Don't ask me why this happened. Just note that it happened.
Here, I've got the hots for you. I'm going to put a hole in your convertible.
That it does have attention-seeking behavior written all over it, Greg.
Yeah. Dwight, I'm not sure I've gotten any better at it, Dwight, over the last 40 years, by the way.
And I'm not going to give you relationship advice either, dude. So sorry.
Good.
But if we do hear that Bubba got in touch with you, it would be really great to follow up the podcast with another.
100%. When we get to Dwight and David's relationship advice, we'll come back to Bubba.
That's the next podcast we're going to do. Well, today we have a really awesome and fascinating topic, which I think really kind of speaks to where we do need those platforms like Faethm to tell us what will be coming, which is socially responsible automation and implementing a people-first strategy to protect social equity in the age of AI. So, Greg, I have to ask, what is it what do you mean by socially responsible automation?
What happens when employees behave badly? Boy, we could do an entire TV show, maybe a Netflix special on that. Well, Ryan and I sat down and recorded episodes for FAMA, and we asked practitioners, give us your most outrageous story. The sales leader that brings cocaine to work, whatever. Just bring us the outrageous, and it is funny. So if you need a laugh, which we all do from time to time, search for workplace misconduct wherever you get your podcast, and you'll find it. And trust me, you will laugh and cry, but you'll definitely laugh. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an important opening question because it's not a common thing out there. It's something that we've honed, I guess, as a topic over the last 5 years of doing this and meeting with business leaders, government leaders on the topic. I guess a way to think of it is if I'm going to build a strategy that's socially responsible when it comes to automation, then I'm going to plan. I'm going to understand that if I'm going to implement this type of technology, I want to understand what the impact on my people will be. And if I know that, then I can organize myself to say, well, over that 2 or 3 year horizon of implementing this big digital transformation, let's call it, rather than firing those people impacted by these technologies and using that as my cost savings, and displacing these workers. No. I'm going to actually say, hey, I have a bunch of future jobs I need to add to my organization. I've got 2 years, 3 years maybe, to get these folks reskilled and upskilled to go fill those future jobs. So that should be my strategy. I should see it coming, prepare for it, and make sure my responsibility, I suppose, as an employer is to keep my people working. Over the course of this time, we've seen many companies who are simply firing the folks that technology displaces and not having this strategy. One of my favorite moments of this journey was actually from IKEA when they said to us, our strategy is to keep 85% of our employees employable.
Wow.
And I was like, that was the opening gambit to their HR, strategic workforce planning initiative. I was like, that's incredible. That's such a great message to your people and to society, I think, as a whole.
It is. And one might say, well, one at the 100, but it's just shooting for 85 is actually really pretty good, isn't it?
Definitely. And look, no industry is alike, I guess. So some industries are going to see much higher rates of displacement. And therefore, I would agree. And I would say, there's no way you can find in a bank a home for everyone that's being displaced. So, you need to use the same strategy and thinking to say, well, those folks who are leaving my bank, I'm going to give them the same opportunity to be reskilled and upskilled into maybe another industry, maybe in healthcare or something adjacent. So, but that's about, getting that real data-led view to know where I can move them next. This is a better opportunity for them to keep them in the workforce.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking subscribe. This podcast is made possible by Salary.com. Now, back to the show.
So that brings up another question, which is, if we're talking about these emerging technologies, which jobs and which roles happen to be disproportionately impacted typically within an organization?
Yeah, again, I'd say, first of all, no industry is alike. You're going to see different levels and different jobs. I mean, your general rule that we would see in the data and what it tells us, well, those jobs with routine types of tasks, mundane types of tasks, repetitive tasks, obviously they're kind of the first to be impacted. But that is changing dramatically because technology is advancing so quickly. We had an interesting scenario where data science, it was one of the key new jobs. It was, we all talked about, move into data science. How do we give you pathways? And then what pops up when that huge demand for data science exists, but there's a low supply? What happens? The next hot startup is, hey, I've created a way to automate data science. Like, whoa, oh crap. We were telling all these people to go become data scientists. And, now what do we do? So it's a constantly evolving and changing kind of landscape of tech. But I think, what we learned through this process, again, was all the media tells us about automation. Right. And they're missing two significant ramifications of this. One is augmentation, and that this is not all about job displacement. We need to augment nurses, for example, with technology so they can become the power of two when it comes to patient care. Right. So that is a real positive, creates capacity within any workforce, but also addition. And so what new jobs do I need to add in this future state as I continue? So that, again, is a real positive, but we don't often see or hear about those two positive ramifications. We just hear, oh my God, the robots are taking our jobs, and it's the automation and all. You got to bring all of that.
Yeah, I don't know if you had heard, but especially around here, we found it very difficult to hire like servers. And so some organizations, some restaurants were actually hiring and employing robots to deliver food to tables in order so that the wait staff could take on the more complex roles and not worry about the serving aspects of the food service, but also being able to then help be able to, get the more, as I said, more complex roles completed. And there were some that were highlighted on television, and it was remarkable because you do think about, okay, well, this is a really hard job for humans, probably not too hard for a robot, but it's a rather demanding job. So how do you service that robot? How do you keep it, charged? How do you keep it? It's also a very messy role too. How do you keep it clean? And how do you keep it well-oiled?
Yeah. So, just exactly what you've just described. Well, that creates new jobs for some of those people who have to do that work, or, it's an advanced type of work as well. It's a little more highly skilled. Our challenge has always been, great, how do I prepare the server that was a server and now give them opportunities for some of these new jobs that maybe require some STEM related skills that they don't have? And am I going to invest in the training that's needed, or am I going to fire that role and go hire these folks in robotics, which is our historic way? And for all the HR people out there, don't take this the wrong way, but for decades, this is how we operated HR. This was our processes that we had in place. And I think another, maybe lesson we've learned along this journey is we got to blow those up. We got to erase the last 3 decades of that and think in a new paradigm as we go forward.
Well, I think that brings up another question, which is the role of data and how we can use data to help make better decisions around these emerging areas and enable people to be able to harness the data to make better decisions. I would imagine there's some upskilling needed to be done there too, especially in HR.
Oh, you bet. I think the number one question I get when I present to folks in HR is like, can you pull me up in Faethm? Can you show me what's happening to my job? It's a very human response to this topic, I think, and maybe I've had experience in my own life or my parents or whomever. So I think, what about me? I think, what about my kids? So I think there is a transformation. Of course, what I tell everyone in HR, and if you're listening out there, I say, don't fret. We don't have enough of you to deal with the people ramifications of this topic. We actually see more opportunity for the HR function. Yes, we need to upskill. It's not about tech displacing, but upskill HR. We need more data capability. Now, I don't need you to be able to code or create AI, but hey, HR, I do need you to understand those technologies and how to use them and apply them, what the impacts are going to be on your people, so you can be more effective in your job. So yes, there is a transformation of the HR function. We've seen an explosion of people analytics teams within HR. Some organizations still sit it in the CIO's office. Others have moved it out. But that's been when I look at, like, say, our customers and who's more successful than others, it's those who have made that decision, built that team, and then are taking their rather static HR data sitting in their HRS system, actually turning it into dynamic, useful, insightful information to drive action. So I think data is the ultimate maybe equalizer, right? We can use it to kind of propel HR to the senior leadership table, but also use it to remove biases that are naturally created.
We've seen a lot of reticence, Greg, because HR people tend to be more of the support people and have done a lot more administrative roles rather than being more advanced in the mathematics and the statistics. And I'll liken it between the difference between an HR generalist and a comp person, where a comp person has typically had a lot of years of doing statistical analysis, especially around pay equity, whereas an HR generalist has had to deal with a lot of management issues, a lot of support issues that kind of keep them out of the statistical realm. And I think that's the group that probably needs it more, right?
Yes, although I find, and again, if we pull this back to the data, much of the gaps that we're seeing are in the soft skills, what we've called soft skills, for a long time. The ability to tell the story, interpret the data. What does it mean? How do I take action? And that is a skill in itself, and sometimes a difficult one. So, but you look at this at a data layer and say, well, actually, people in HR tend to have a good kind of allocation of those types of skills. They're not far away from where we need to be on those soft skills. So that's a bonus. Sure. Now, where they have gaps is in data and digital literacies. And again, reinforce, you remember this as well as I, for 5 years ago, the world, every MP, every senator stood on a podium and said, we're going to teach everyone to code. And like that was the silver bullet. It's going to solve all our problems, right? Well, that's BS, right? That is not the silver bullet. So now we go, actually, no, you just need to understand these things. So yes, there is some STEM skills you need, but it's not to code. It's not to write the AI. It's understand the AI. How does it impact work? One of my favorite stories, I got too many favorite stories, but was a big bank we worked with, and their CIO came to HR and said, hey, I'm implementing voice AI. My call center agents, are going to see some displacement, some disruption. So we're going to look into that. But she said, I also need to hire a new role. It's a conversation engineer. And HR said, what the heck is that? I've never heard of it. We don't have that job in my catalog. What are you talking about? No problem. The CIO says, I get it. Well, what they need to be able to do is, they need to have creative writing skills. So creativity is critical, but they also need some STEM skills. They need to understand AI and how it works and how it would impact a call center agent. And again, HR is going, what are you talking about? Where do I find those skills? I've never had to go and source for that. So back to this HR having to kind of blow up the way they've done things to come up with a new horizon, because this job effectively was having to understand the call center agent's job so they can come out of that job, which is good. But then they have to learn tech well enough so they can teach the AI how to talk to us. So when I call that, call center, the AI knows how to pause appropriately and respond to me in a way that I'm going to like and understand. So that's a new job that didn't exist before. Now, unfortunately, you don't need 1,000 of those where you might have 1,000 in your call center. So there's our dilemma again, and we need to find a path for those call center workers to other jobs, maybe other industries.
I can liken that, or it seems like that was very similar to when the internet was blowing up. And we needed a new type of role for being able to deal with new things on the internet. Like, for example, we needed new people who knew how to derive internet advertising, which is very different than the world of advertising in newspapers or on television.
I think of the one of the things that being in a leadership role, I learned the hard way over the years was that whenever I was looking to buy something or get something that would help with our processes, early on in my career, I started saying, okay, we can save this many FTE if we implement this system. And what I learned very quickly was that there was no FTE savings because there was always something else to be done. And there was always a new skill set that was needed in order to backfill what we were ultimately automating per se. And I think that's, you look at this, since the Industrial Revolution started, we've been trying to replace people with automation. And yeah, we've automated a lot of tasks. Like you said at the beginning, Greg, talking about some of the routine tasks, the repetitive tasks. And yep, we've automated that. But as you've pointed out, we continue to need new skill sets that we build. And so basically we're shifting is what ultimately ends up happening. And it's a matter of how strategic you are about making those shifts.
Yeah, and I think that some of these decisions flow on social ramifications. I was just in San Diego, and a couple weeks ago we were talking about the energy transition. And one of the ramifications as we shift to clean and green energy is that we effectively shut down a lot of those brown energy sources, and that displaces masses of workers. But they tend to be in here in Australia, we were talking to the ex-governor of Colorado at the time, and it's in very remote parts of the state. If 2,000 or 3,000 workers suddenly lose their job in a remote part of your state, you are in real strife.
Sure. Right.
And so we come back full circle to your question about data and say, well, if I can start with this at a data layer and a data conversation to say, that's coming, what do we do? How do we redeploy those workers? I can then drive a policy change that says, you know what? I'm not going to be able to redeploy them all in that geographic location. I need to offer a kind of mobility package for some folks,
right,
and help them move to either another part of my state, or often what we're finding is, if that was Colorado and Texas is going big in hydrogen and wind and solar, hey, let's help them redeploy into and maybe work with the state of Texas, who, by the way, is looking for skills to do that. Yep. As they look to mobilize and Colorado looks to shut down brown, hey, great, let's give them that pathway, and either at a state level or, heaven forbid, a federal level, help that happen, because we know it's coming.
Right.
We see it.
Right.
Don't wait for it to happen. We know it's coming. Use the data to tell us that and get the decisions made now to prepare for that future.
So that kind of brings us to question 3, because I think you're onto something right there, which is, how can HR use those examples to influence business leaders and actually help them make what could be extremely socially responsible, good decisions for the company, good decisions for their employees when you're introducing some kind of new technology?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, talking about this. And I think one thing we're promoting a lot now is that this is it needs to be, because it's not, a board kind of governed, managed item. Not long ago, no board talked about diversity, equity, inclusion. Right. Not long ago, no board talked about carbon footprint, right? Or sustainability from that perspective. But now they are. And I think this has that level of impact. It was actually the chair of the Australian Stock Exchange, Yasmin Allen, who first raised this with me. And she was on our board at Faethm. And that was amazing to have someone of her caliber on our board. But she was the first to say, hey, I meet with other board members of some of the biggest companies, not just in Australia, but in the world, on a regular basis. And I can tell you, they don't understand this issue. They don't see it coming. They don't have visibility to it, but they need to, because the people ramifications, the societal ramifications are immense. Absolutely. So yeah, she was kind of the first that put that in my mind. So that got me thinking about, how do we do that? And back to your question, well, I think number one, we need to arm HR with meaningful data that elevates them. And not every HR leader at the executive table has the same voice.
That's right.
Some have an equal voice. Some get handed the action rather than coming to the table with the action. So this is an opportunity, I think, to empower the chief people officer or leader at that exco to be there with a point of view. I understand the impact of tech and these other forces on our people, and we need to act and take action to resolve this. Now, one way we can do that is by the CIO and the CHRO actually, meeting, talking, planning, aligning their strategies, which is not a common thing. I'm not surmising here. I've seen this firsthand for 5.5 years plus maybe the 10 years prior in my career in other tech companies. It's just not a common connection point. But I feel like data can be the bridge that brings those two together to say, oh, my tech strategy, my people strategy actually are colliding here. Right. How do I prepare for these social ramifications, or things like gender diversity? The CIO's roadmap in every bank in America and the world is going to destroy diversity, equity, inclusion. We've got the data, we're seeing it firsthand, but we're not acting upon that to say, well, let's get those minority groups that are disproportionately being automated and get them into the reskilling programs for our future jobs first to make sure we don't blow up that key.
Hey, Greg, why aren't we talking about this with CHROs in a more proactive stance then, so that it's not after an action happens or after the automation happens, but either prior to, and make it a policy, or make it something that's done in conjunction, whether it's through strategic workforce planning or during the investment process, when you're bringing in that new technology, that at that same time, you're also looking at those socially responsible ways of being able to reskill and upskill.
Oh, I wish I knew.
That's the $1 million,
the crystal ball.
That would be great for my business if I could figure that one out. I mean, look, fair enough. I'm kind of, maybe, I don't know if I'm taking a negative view of this, but I'm trying to create urgency here because we don't see enough of the good stuff. But absolutely, there are good things happening. You know, I mentioned IKEA. Zurich Insurance was another great example where, you know, they came out publicly and said, yes, we are going to automate. Yes, that's going to impact people. But here's the £1 million investment we're putting aside for our team in the UK that's being impacted to reskill and upskill them and keep them employable. That was like, you know, they went out, not only were they doing it, but they went out and put an information age article out telling people they were doing it, which is tremendous because what a great recruiting tool.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to go work for Zurich, who takes care of their people like that? Or do you want to go work for this company that just, front page news is automation agenda displaces 3,000 workers? Yeah. No. Right. So I think there are definitely good examples of it. It's still, unfortunately, seemingly rare where you see those stories versus the front page news of, jobs being lost because of automation strategy. So, but there are definitely good examples of it. I mean, Rio Tinto is another great example, global mining companies. You go to a mine site and it's like there's no people around. Like, holy crap! What happened to all those people? They actually say, hey, we employ more people now than we did before we automated. They're just not here. They're in our ops center in the city somewhere. So wow, that's a better life, is it not, for those workers if they provide them the skilling to get those other jobs? So there are definitely good examples. I don't feel like it's fast enough, which is why we espouse that this become a board issue. That then has to be driven down into the organizations, and they are made aware when the CIO is about to displace workers and go, hang on, have we not connected that to a people strategy and a reskilling and upskilling plan?
So, Greg, we've now talked about socially responsible automation and how to implement a people-first strategy, and we also know what it is because it's such a new thing. It's something that we hadn't heard of before. So thank you for that. We've also talked about what is socially responsible automation in terms of what technologies are actually displacing and what workforce is disproportionately being displaced. And then we talked about some examples of how we can get in front of this and how HR can use data to be in front of it. What else did we not cover? What else would you like to close with?
Oh, one of the maybe misconceptions in this whole topic, whether it's the future of work or however you tag it, the fourth industrial revolution, is sometimes it's a bit for organizations and particularly for HR, that this issue is too big and where do I start? And so, a message we're constantly bringing is, number one, if you can get the data you need to make the decisions, you can start small. Take that first action. That's the important part of this. Don't feel like you're going to have to solve this thing because it's such a new way of doing HR in every realm, ongoing, because this tech impact's not going to just stop or suddenly be done. It's just going to keep evolving. So think of it as a new way of doing recruiting, new way of doing development plans, L&D, strategic workforce planning. So that's one thing. The other is it's not the future. This is yesterday. So sometimes we say it's now, whatever, but it's been going on now for years. So you got to act now. The next senator is not going to solve this. The next CEO is not going to solve this, right? Much as you might like that to be the case, it's you. You're the team coming to save us, right? So you've got to act immediately if you're not already on that path. And I think one of the last big lessons we've learned, CHROs are often saying to me, "How do I get the business case approved for this?" And it's not, again, it's not a, CIOs are good at buying stuff.
Yeah.
CHROs not always.
Right.
So, learning how to get the business case approved, and, that comes to tying these people issues to the business strategy.
Right.
Again, not a common activity, but, I had the chief caregiver officer, so the head of HR for Cleveland Clinic, say to me, well, my number one objective is to grow revenues. I said, that's strange. I don't hear that often from HR. And they said, well, yeah, here's the deal. To grow revenues, I need to open up more centers, hospitals. Well, to do that, I need more nurses. How am I going to get more nurses when kids aren't going to get their nursing credentials anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I need to bring in technology to augment nurses and make nurses the power of two. Then I can grow revenues.
Yeah.
Nailed it. There you go. Tell every CHRO that story. Connect your people plan to your business strategy, and you'll get that approval.
Drop the mic, Greg. You can walk out on that one right there. Greg, thank you so much. I can truly tell you this is one podcast where I've learned a tremendous amount in a very short period of time. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
You bet. No, it's really good to speak with you both.
Dwight, thank you very much.
Thanks, David. Thanks so much for being with us, Greg. It's been awesome.
You bet.
Thank you very much for listening. And if you found value in this, please hit subscribe. And if you know somebody who might like the episode, please send it their way. Thank you very much. Take care, and please stay safe.
That was the HR Data Labs podcast. If you liked the episode, please subscribe. And if you know anyone that might like to hear it, please send it their way. Thank you for joining us this week, and stay tuned for our next episode. Stay safe.